Chapter 1, An Introduction to the Human Body. So we're going to start talking about just what the basics are of anatomy and physiology. Anatomy is the study of structure. Physiology is going to be the study of function. Both of these are very closely related, as structure will help us determine function, and function can tell us what the characteristics are of a tissue or a cell. Now, as we can see here, soup is not necessarily meant to be eaten by forks. So would we say that these structures and functions are very closely related? Probably not. So the structure of a tissue, a cell in the body, is really going to help us understand how that component functions. So before we move into A&P, we're going to talk a little bit about general biology that you should have had from your previous courses. So what we're looking at is just a typical animal cell that has all of the material that could be in any possible cell present. Not every animal cell will have everything that we see here. And all of this stuff that you learned in Gen Bio is really important because it's going to be the foundation of what we learn here in A&P. So what we're going to do is just go over some of the major components of animal cells that we will be seeing throughout this semester. So what we see in the middle is we see right here the nucleus. Okay, why is the nucleus important? If you said because it contains DNA, you're perfectly correct. Now, also in the nucleus, we're going to have the nucleolus. The nucleolus is really important because it's where the ribosomal RNA is going to be composed, which leads us to our next structure, ribosomes. Ribosomes are going to be made within the nucleolus, and they're actually composed of two subunits, a small and a large. But the most important thing about ribosomes is their ability to make what? Can you think of something that you learned that ribosomes made? If you said proteins, you're exactly right. And what we're going to learn is that your cells produce tons of proteins, not only for communication, but to stay healthy, to compose fibers in your body, makes up your muscles. So ribosomes are very important. Next structure is the Golgi apparatus, also known as the Golgi bodies. As we can see, these are just a series of curved sacs, membranous sacs stacked on each other. But what's really important is that they had a nickname that you may have learned in Gen Bio. We call them the packaging house. Basically what happens is material from the rough ER, these vesicles right here, are going to enter the Golgi apparatus. As these materials move through the Golgi apparatus, they're going to be repackaged into one or two things. So here they're exiting. They can exit as a vesicle that is going to actually be released to the outside of the cell, or they can exit as lysosomes. Lysosomes are going to be small molecules, or small vesicles that package digestive molecules in them. So a lot of times people refer to the lysosomes as the garbage can of the cell. And what lysosomes do is they're going to fuse with debris in the cell, old organelles. They're actually going to fuse with it and break down that material for trash. Okay, next is going to be your friendly little mitochondria. Most people will remember the mitochondria as the powerhouse of the cell, but what does that basically mean? Well, what the powerhouse mean is that this is the organelle that's producing most of your body's energy. Do y'all remember what the energy of the body is? You got it, ATP, adenosine triphosphate. So the mitochondria are the main organelle that produce ATP for us. They're going to produce ATP through cellular aerobic respiration. Okay, what this means, aerobic, what does that mean? It means with oxygen. So for us to produce the most amount of ATP that can be generated from an organelle, it will be through cellular aerobic respiration. So we need oxygen present. But do y'all remember which biomolecule we also need present so the mitochondria can make ATP? Think about what you need when, or what you eat when you need quick energy. If you said sugar, you're right. Specifically, it is glucose. This is the most common used molecule to make ATP. Now the last component that we're going to talk about is going to be the cell membrane. As you can see in this picture, the cell membrane is made out of 2 layers. 1, 2. And we call this the phospholipid bilayer membrane. The outside of the membrane and the inside of the membrane are made up of phosphate heads. These phosphate heads are going to be water-loving, so they're considered polar. They do like charges, and we're also known as hydrophilic. Okay. But then we have the inside. The inside is going to be made up of fatty acid tails. What do y'all know about fat and water? They don't mix, you're correct. So basically what happens is the fatty acid tails, the middle of the membrane, are nonpolar. They do not like charges. And they are hydrophobic. Okay. But the problem is that on the outside we have all these ions. And what these ions carry are charges. So ions are basically just atoms with charges. So here are atoms on the outside of the cell, and then here are some atoms on the inside of the cell, or ions. Now anything with charges is not going to be able to move through this membrane. So if it has a plus or a minus, what's going to happen is it can get through the phosphate heads, but then it's going to be turned around once it hits the fatty acid tails. Same thing's going to happen on the inside. They're going to try to go through the phospholipids, and they're going to get turned right back around once they hit those fatty acid tails. And that's because those fatty acid tails don't like charges. But we need to be able to move ions into and out of the cell. So how we do that is by using protein channels or protein gates. So what we see right here is a protein channel, and this protein channel has an opening in the middle, and this opening is going to allow ions to move in and out. So anytime we need to move ions, we have to rely on protein channels or protein gates. Most gates are going to be very specific for what they allow in. So some might allow chloride in, while others might allow potassium out. So remember, anytime that you might struggle with some of the basics from Gen Bio, your textbook, chapters 2 and 3, are going to give you an overview of Gen Bio concepts. So what we're going to do now is we're going to talk about the organization of the human body. Since this is human anatomy A&P, that's what we will focus on. And again, this is some repetition from Gen Bio. So hierarchical organization basically means we go from small to large. The first level of hierarchical organization that we're going to see is going to be on the chemical level, meaning that there's no lifelike characteristics. And these are going to be atoms, the smallest unit. As you can see, your body is made up of some common atoms, C, H, O, and P. Schnapp. Do y'all know what the C stands for? The H, the O, the N, and the P? Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and phosphorus. Okay? Now, when these atoms lose or gain electrons, what happens is they become ions. And these are the guys that cannot move through the membranes on themselves. Ions are going to carry either a positive or a negative charge. When we start adding atoms together, we're going to get the next level of organization, which is still considered the chemical level, and this is the molecules. Okay, now molecules are just atoms combined together, and in your body we have what we consider 4 biomolecules. They're also known as macromolecules. These are the very large molecules. These 4 molecules, as you can see, one is DNA. So DNA is a type of nucleic acid. What's the other type? RNA. Okay, so that's one of your body's biomolecules. What do we eat to build muscles? Protein, you got it. That is another biomolecule. Okay, what about to get quick energy? You got it, carbs. And then the last one is what you try to avoid high in. You don't want lots of grease, you don't want lots of oil. So the last one is lipids. Okay, these 4 biomolecules will combine to make the next level of organization, which is the cellular level. The cellular level is the first level that we see lifelike characteristics. There are tons of different types of cells in your body, but all the cells are going to have those organelles that we just referred to, and they're all going to be made out of your biomolecules. When we add the same cells together, we're going to make the next level of organization, which is tissues. In humans, we have 4 adult tissues, meaning that these are the 4 main tissues that do the functions. These 4 adult tissues are going to be epithelial tissue, connective tissue, muscular tissue, and nervous tissue. Okay, these 4 tissues are going to be the topic for chapter 4. Now, when we add tissues, 2 or more different tissues together, the next level of organization is the organ level. Organs are going to be made out of 2 or more different tissues. So we have the stomach, the heart, lungs, brain, liver, skin, bones. All of these are organs made up of multiple different tissues. When organs start to communicate with each other, it's going to make up the next level, which is the system level. You have 11 different systems in your body. The one shown here is digestive, but you also have respiratory, cardiovascular, nervous, endocrine, lymphatic, immune. So lots of different lots of different organ systems in your body. When all of these organ systems communicate together and work for the main purpose, which is homeostasis, this is going to be the organismal level, and for us it's humans. So what are some other characteristics that are going to be useful to understand in A and P? Basically, a lot of the stuff we talk about is going to be on the cellular level, so what goes on in the cells. So the first thing we're going to talk about for how the cells help contribute to homeostasis is going to be talking about metabolism. We've all heard about metabolism. I have a fast metabolism, I have a slow metabolism. Well, basically what that means is metabolism is just the sum of all of the chemical reactions in your body. So all the chemical reactions at the cellular level, tissue level, organ system level. All of these combined makes up the metabolism. So metabolism can be broken down into 2 different categories. We can build material in your body, or we can break down material in your body. So back in Gen Bio, what y'all learned was that you have small units in your body called monomers. So this would be a single monomer. This would be a monomer. So monomers are just small units or small subunits. Okay, then you have larger units called polymers. Polymers are basically lots of monomers linked together. So this right here would be considered a polymer. This would be considered a polymer. So the two types of metabolism is going to be building up and breaking down. So we're going to take monomers and we're going to make polymers, and we're going to take polymers and break them down to monomers. So the first one that we're going to go over is going to be catabolism. Catabolism is taking large molecules and breaking them into smaller molecules. So we're taking a polymer, and then we're going to break that polymer into monomers. So think about when you put proteins in your body, so you're eating a hamburger or you're eating chicken, you're breaking that protein down into its smaller units, which are amino acids. So you can imagine that this right here would be the protein. And after it goes through a series of reactions, we get our amino acids. Okay. So catabolism is breaking down. Well, sometimes we actually need to build things in our body. If we want to build muscle, we're going to take the smaller units, the monomers, and we're going to link them together to make up polymers. Okay, this is called anabolism. Anabolism is building up. Okay, so what we have is we're going to take these amino acids that are all right here. So here's all these amino acids. They're all single units, and we're going to link them together to make our protein, which is the big unit, the polymer. So anabolism is building up, catabolism is breaking down. Now, when we break down and we build up, this all has to do with energy in our body. So what we're looking here is we have all of these bonds occurring between each monomer. When these bonds are broken, what we're releasing is your body's energy. So when we need energy, we're actually breaking bonds in your body. But sometimes we need to store energy for later use. So again, when we take these smaller units and we put them into bigger units through anabolism, we create bonds. When we create bonds, what we're doing is we're storing energy. Remember, your body's energy is ATP, but all the energy that we're storing is going to be in the form of electrons. So, catabolism is going to be breaking down large units into smaller units, and when we do this, we release energy. And anabolism is going to be building up, taking smaller units and making them into large units. And in this case, we're going to be storing energy. Now, the last thing we're going to go over that's a unique characteristics to animals, or in this case, as we're talking about humans, is we're going to talk about growth and reproduction. It's one of the really important things for humans is growth and reproduction. So basically, your life cycle is going to be made up of two major parts: mitosis and meiosis. Okay. You go through an entire life cycle once you hit puberty. You don't necessarily have to produce offspring to have completed a life cycle. So what happens is females produce eggs and males produce sperm. We produce these gametes, which are just the sex cells, through meiosis. Okay. When that sperm fertilizes the egg, we produce what we call a zygote. A zygote is a fertilized egg, and then through development in the womb, the zygote is going to develop into a baby. Now, how do we grow and make new cells? Well, this process is going to be through mitosis. So growth of a human being occurs through mitosis, And as that human being grows, we hit a certain age. Once we hit that certain age, we can start producing our gametes, eggs and sperms, through meiosis. So we're growing through mitosis. We're able to produce eggs and sperm through meiosis. The sperm fertilizes the egg. The fertilized egg, known as the zygote, is going to grow through the process of mitosis. And then as that human grows, it will either develop to a male or female and produce eggs and sperms to go through another cycle. Okay, so growth and reproduction is really important to help increase the population as well as genetic diversity. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to finish this part of Chapter 1, and there will be another lecture on Chapter 1 focusing on homeostasis and terminology.